This week's class is dedicated in loving memory of Lillian Rishti, Leah Bat Mazal, Alea Shalom by Robin Beta, and in loving memory of Pesha Bas Feivel, Alea Shalom by Anonymous. Thank you so much to everyone who is sponsoring. It makes all the difference in the world to us during this difficult time to know that you're with us and that you're helping support do these shiurim, the classes that we're trying to get out to everybody. Okay. Rabbi Elazar HaModai. Rabbi Elazar from Modai. He used to say, HaMechalel et HaKodashim, someone who violates or who profanes, okay, the Kodashim, something which is holy. So, as an example, the sacrifices in the Beit HaMikdash, or the temple itself, or any of the korbanot, or all the various things that have the holy elements of service attached to them. So someone who profanes it, they make it unholy, they make it impure. HaMechalel et HaKodashim ve'hamevazeh et HaMoadot, or someone who belittles the Moadot, the festivals of the year. So they kind of belittle Pesach or Shavuot or Sukkot or the holidays or the holy days of throughout the year, including Rabbeinu Yonah writes even Chol HaMoed, the time in between the holidays, the bookends is called Chol HaMoed. So even someone who treats that with not enough respect, they're working during that time, or they're making it as if it's a regular day. Or someone who whitens the face of their friend publicly. Okay? What does it mean to whiten their face? We're not talking about putting makeup on. What we're talking about is, as the Gemara says, that when you humiliate someone, or you see sometimes when someone is very, very frightened, their face goes white. The blood literally drains from their face. So someone who's malbin pnei havero berabim, they whiten the face, their friend's face in public. V'hamefer birito shel Avraham Avinu, and someone who undoes the brit, the covenant of Avraham Avinu. What is this referring to? It was referring to back in the day, especially in the Roman and Greek times when they'd have these great sporting events. The Olympics, as an example, were originally done people were doing it without wearing any clothing. So at the time, there were strict rules about the perfection of athletes. And if someone wasn't a perfect specimen, then they weren't allowed to join these games. And there were Jewish athletes that wanted to be part of this culture. So what they would do is, instead of being circumcised, which was considered to be a blemish on the perfect body that the Greeks idolized, so they would have people that would basically undo the circumcision and pull the foreskin back down in order to be considered someone that was a perfect human specimen, so that they could join into these games. And someone who reveals a portion of Torah which is not according to halacha. What does that mean? They're basically translating or interpreting Torah to mean what it is that they would like to, so it's contrary to its actual or to its true intent. En lo chelek le'olam haba. He has no portion in the world to come. That's what the Mishnah tells us, okay? So we read something here, very, very powerful. En lo chelek le'olam haba. This person has no portion in the world to come. Now, in Judaism, that's a pretty bold statement. And I'll tell you why. Number one, the Mishnah tells us, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek le'olam haba. All Jewish people have a portion in the world to come. By the way, Judaism is the one religion that doesn't proselytize, doesn't force Christians or Muslims or Buddhists or Sikhs or Taoists to join its ranks, because it does not believe that a person who is not Jewish is precluded or excluded from the world to come. Olam haba, a connection with God, is something that every Gentile person can also achieve if they but fulfill the 7 mitzvot, 7 commandments of the Bnei Noach, which are mitzvot that operate in a way which promotes a healthy, fair, and happy society. So no murder, no adultery, etc., etc. No worshiping idols, as that's perhaps the one which is not specifically a social mitzvah. Having laws, okay? Tearing a limb off an animal while it's alive. These are the 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach. So even a non-Jewish person can have a portion in the world to come. Okay? A Jewish person who can do mitzvot. We know Rambam states that how do we decide if a person is a tzaddik or a rasha? We decide based on how many mitzvot he has. Does he have a majority mitzvot or majority of averot, majority of positive commandments, or does he have a positive deeds, or is he more, outweighed by the negative deeds? So all of a sudden comes this Mishnah and says, Afilu, af alpi, even if sheyesh biyado Torah u'masim tovim, even if he has lots of Torah learning, okay, u'masim tovim, and lots of mitzvot, en lo chelek le'olam haba, he loses his portion in the world to come. What does that even mean? He loses his portion in the world to come? Doesn't it make sense that we should now weigh this out? These mitzvot, these things that he's done wrong, one of these 5 things, shouldn't we now count that out against the deeds that he already has and decide, when we've looked at the fuller picture, if this guy does deserve or doesn't deserve it? What is this rabbi teaching us by saying that these 5 things preclude a person from having a portion in the world to come? Now, what's fascinating to me is, if a person once broke Shabbat or broke the holiday or whatever the case might be, there's no one in this world that would say that that person can't have a portion to Olam Haba. So how could it be that we're now saying, Amevazeh et HaMoadot, which Rabbeinu Yonah actually translates as someone who doesn't give proper respect to Chol HaMoed, which is a lower level of holiness than the holiday? So how could it be that these statements are true? So there's something I think that we need to begin with. Once we've now laid the groundwork with this question, there's something I think we need to begin with in understanding what this Mishnah is communicating. Because I think that when we look at this Mishnah and when we understand what it's teaching us, the lesson that it teaches us is remarkable across a much wider, background than these 5 mitzvot. And perhaps the clue or the trick is to try and figure out what it is that these different things they kind of have in common. What are they doing that seems to be the same, that they were grouped together in this Mishnah by Rabbi Elazar HaModai? Okay? Rabbi Elazar says, Amechalel et HaKodashim, someone who is profaning something holy. Okay, so is that a thread? Mivazeh et HaMoadot, also you're destroying something holy. Malbim b'nei chavero berabin, destroying someone as a human being. Yeah, a human being in Judaism has an element of holiness. The same thing with the Brit Milah. Megale panim. All of these things, one could understand that the Mishnah was teaching us that someone who takes something holy and destroys its holiness, ruins its holiness, whether the holiness could be found in a day, like the Moadot, like the holidays, or the holiness can be found in an object, like the Kodashim, like we started the Mishnah, or the holiness that can be found within the life and the sanctity and the dignity of a human being's respect. If you are capable of profaning holy things, then the punishment for that is that the holiest thing in the world, something that should have had your respect, actually kind of bleeds away from you. And en lo chelek le'olam haba. So it might be that you have tremendous mitzvot and unbelievable Torah, but if you strip from the Torah and you strip from the mitzvot their holiness, then actually those things can be actually quite negative things. Sometimes you have a person or a politician or a president of an institution or a police chief or whatever who are making statements. What are they doing? They're making statements about the community, but people might realize and see through it that actually these statements and these programs that you're running seem to come around only right before election years. So when someone sees through someone's intentions and we can see that it's for a self-serving purpose, actually it makes people have an even more negative approach or feeling towards that action than if they hadn't done them at all. If you didn't do anything, so you're just a politician or a fire chief or a CEO trying to kind of get by, trying to be powerful. We relate to ideas, the idea of people trying to have power and have money and have influence. We relate to that. But when someone tries to take, you see someone go and help a little old lady across the road, right during election season, and then he posts it on social media. So what do you think to yourself? The guy's virtue signaling. He wants everyone to see how special he is. But really, actually, that act of kindness, when it's rooted in selfishness, it gives us such a bad taste in our mouth that actually we think worse of the person for the mitzvah. Fascinating. So it seems to be maybe what the Mishnah is telling us is a person who can take something holy and strip away the holiness from a day, from a thing, from a person, from the Torah, by making it about his own agenda. Megale panim b'Torah shelo k'halacha. I'm going to say a halacha the way I want it to be. So I'll give you an example. There's lots of times that there are huge political issues that are going on in society. So there'll be sometimes people who are asking in a realistic way, Rabbi, what is the Torah's position on X? Okay? And some people actually really want to know on this, hot topic, this live wire issue, what is the Jewish perspective? But actually, sometimes that's not the case at all. People are only trying to stir the pot. They want to make either you look bad or Judaism look bad. So they're coming to you for a statement. And whatever you're going to say, they'll try and twist it to meet their agenda. What is their agenda? Their agenda is to tear down a rabbi or to tear down a politician. So they'll ask pointed, cutting questions, actually not for the sake of hearing. And when the person starts answering the question, by the way, and this is how you know the questioner's agenda, when the question starts being answered and it's answered well, and then the person changes the question or changes the topic or moves on before the answer's actually been fully delivered, you know that their point was to trip up this public official, or their point was to trip up this CEO, and actually they couldn't care less. All they're trying to do is get a juicy piece of a news story to be able to run with. And it's actually one of the big challenges of our lifetime that media today is profitable. Because the minute you bring money to information, then the information is driven by what sells. And we know that, sensationalism sells more than mundane, boring news. So the media always wants a story. And by the way, I keep saying this, not right, not left, everybody in news wants a story, because you know what the bottom line is? Their bottom line is not to get you the truth, nothing but the truth, only the truth, nothing but the truth. Their bottom line is their fiscal is whether they're in the black or in the red. They're selling advertising. Advertising dollars dictate. And when giant corporations hold these companies or these television stations or Facebook or whomever to task, and they force their hand, they say to them, if you don't censor these comments or those comments or this person or that person, we're pulling our advertising dollars. Suddenly, the situation that we are in is that we're being dictated to all the time. People are sharing stories with us that are not motivated by truth. They're motivated by specific bias or interest. So here we are, the Mishnah says, Megale panim b'Torah shelo k'halacha. What happens if a rabbi knows he wants to be popular? He wants the people to listen to him. So you know what? He sees that everybody's all, gung-ho about whatever the flavor of the month is that month. And he says, actually, Torah Judaism is very supportive of, alternative lifestyles. Or Torah is very supportive of Black Lives Matter. It might be whatever is hot at the moment. The person just wants to get behind it. So they'll cherry pick some line to make it seem as if they and the thing that they represent is very much in tune with the political agendas of the day or the populist agendas of the day. Now, sometimes the Torah is in alignment with that, and sometimes it isn't. When we're talking about the value and sanctity of a human life, the Torah taught that when no one taught it. We as Jews were talking about this idea that lives matter, and a tiny life matters, and a portion of a life matters, and a life of a special child matters, even if the child is mentally or physically disabled and handicapped. We were preaching that before it was popular. So when something is true when it's not popular, then it's also true when it's popular. But when things are only true when they're popular, you realize that actually there isn't a grain of truth in that person, and that they bend and sway with the wind. So the Mishnah is telling us over here, when a person is willing to strip holiness away for whatever their agenda is, so holiness is not important to them. Olam Haba is only holiness. In that place, you don't have, pop culture. In that place, you don't have peer pressure. In that place, all you have is the holiness that you held up, that you valued in this world, and you can celebrate and enjoy and feel the connection with God that you worked on in this world for eternity in Olam Haba. That is what we're packing for, so to speak, with our mitzvot and our ma'asim tovim, our good deeds on this earth. So when you look at it that way, now we start to understand one line of reasoning in the Mishnah. But I'd like to suggest, and perhaps before we understand another or an alternate method, I want to try and draw that idea down into our world. There are some people who come to the synagogue and they talk all the time. And one of the first things I said as a rabbi is that I am not a shusher. I'm not that person that walks into synagogue and says, shh, 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 shh. I can't handle. You know why? Because if you're shushing people, then you miss the point. If you're telling people that they're not allowed to talk in shul, then you've missed the point. It's true that they're not allowed to talk in shul. It's true that it's a halacha. But if that's all it is, then you're really not getting why you're not supposed to talk in the synagogue. Now, there's an amazing website, and I think everybody should check it out. It's called Stop Talking in Shul. And in this website, this guy, unbelievable guy, just went out of it, went out of his mind trying to teach the whole world about the sanctity and the holiness of the Bet HaKnesset. And I must say, it's a challenge right now to be able to get back to this place. Because you know what? For so many of us, we've gotten used to praying in our own homes. We got used to praying at our own pace. We got used to praying and not having, them have a financial drive in the middle of the minyan. We got used to, for some people who don't like the rabbi's speech, different flavors, like they say. So they're happy. They don't have to listen to a speech. They pray faster. They might be sitting there having a tequila in the middle of the prayers. It's very relaxed at a house minyan. The challenge, though, is in recognizing that this was something that we did because we couldn't do something else. And that the power and the sanctity of a Bet Knesset is so much more powerful than anything you're going to erect in your backyard. Okay? Even if you have a Torah, even if you have a good chazan, it's not the house of God. Yes, you can have a nurse come to your home to help you with a medical issue. That's not the same as being in a fully functioning hospital. Now, if you couldn't go to the hospital because there was COVID patients in it, so you didn't go because it was safer to be at home. But once those restrictions are being lifted, and every person should check the synagogue that they live near, if it's being upheld the correct way, and if it's not, maybe you want to find another one that is. Masks, distancing, whatever you need. But when you can, we should be flocking back to synagogues. Don't you have what to pray about? I do. I don't know that my prayers in my home are as powerful as my prayers in the shul. So I go to the synagogue. I mean, if you're arrogant enough to think that God is for sure going to listen to your prayers no matter where you are, no matter anything, then that's okay. But you should just know that great rabbis are praying in synagogues, even older ones, because they understand the value, the purpose, the sanctity of a house that's built for Hashem, where everything is built and sustained by the tzedakah money of people. Tzedakah money is holy. It's a place that's funded by holy money. The books are there all the time. People study Torah there. It's soaked in the tears of so many people who've prayed for so many things. In that environment, your prayers travel much further. Your aim is much more true. So it's important to go back to shul, whichever shul you're going to go to. And recognizing that holiness is an incredibly important part of this. And not to just think, So when you go to the shul and you don't talk, you see the law, it says, go to the website, stop talking in shul. You can make a dedication. You can decide that for the next 40 days, I'm not going to speak in shul, and you will see wonders in your personal life. In fact, you have a haftacha, a promise from the Tosfot Yom Tov, where he writes that a person who keeps their mouth shut during prayers, they don't speak, Hashem yilachem lachem, God will fight for you, v'atem tacharishun, and the only price is not speaking in the synagogue. Okay? You go, you experience, you do it, you take on this challenge, 40 days, stop the talking in shul, you'll see wonders. He talks about parnasah, he talks about marrying off your children, finding the right people for your children. Unbelievable merits that you get from this, okay? So check it out. It's a wonderful project that he started. But I want to share with you something which I think is magnificent. If you're not talking, because that's the halakha, you missed the boat. You know what it's like? Can I give you an example? You know what it's like? It's like a guy gets married to a wonderful woman. Loves this woman. Fantastic. She's amazing. All right? Anyway, they go home after the marriage and they go out for dinner and they're with friends or whatever. And the girl starts noticing this guy, he never lets her talk. Every time it's her turn to speak, what is he doing? He's talking over her. He's always interrupting her. So she says to him one day, like, I'm speaking. Why do you always speak when I'm speaking? And the guy says, you know something? I hear what you're saying, but first let me consult. And he goes and he looks in the halakha, the Mishnah Birura, and he finds a Gemara, and he looks for a Midrash. Is he allowed to interrupt his wife? Or does he need to let her speak? The guy's an idiot. Because the reason why you're not interrupting her is not because it's a halakha, it's because you love her, and therefore the people you love you show respect to. It's disrespectful to speak when someone you love is trying to speak. Is that obvious? Someone you respect is trying to speak. It's disrespectful. Now, yes, there are laws in the Torah about not being disrespectful to your parents, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the holy places. So when you are speaking in synagogue, that's your beloved. That's the time when you and God are conversing. And instead, you're interrupting and having a conversation with the guy sitting behind you, and usually about stupid things. How insulting is that? How degrading is that? So if keeping quiet shows God that you respect your relationship with Him, and therefore He plays His role in His relationship with you, which is Avinu, Malkenu, Go'alenu, the person who gives you parnasah, life, health, happiness, not showing that respect, showing in the synagogue that someone else is more important than God, says to God, there's no respect. So I'm not the person that you look up to, that you look to for all of this. Because clearly, like, if you had a court case and you were pleading your court case not to pay a huge fine to the IRS, you're in court and you're arguing. If the judge was in the middle of asking you a question and someone behind you said, did you see the game last night? Would any of us think for 1 second to say to the judge, Your Honor, yeah, amazing. Could you say, the home run the guy hit was brilliant. And you know what? I thought he struck him out for sure. It's madness. And that's for a fine. You wouldn't even consider doing that. What would the judge do? He would throw you out for contempt of court. We don't want God to throw us out of His domain for contempt of His court, for contempt of Him. So it's important not to speak in the synagogue. That idea that I'm communicating to you, that the holiness of something demands a certain attitude, a certain way of interacting, is something that I think is a very lost art form. In a way that love between couples, to a large degree, is a lost art form. You see sometimes elderly people, they love so deeply and so completely their partners. You see them at 80, 90, 100 years old, walking, holding hands. When one of them passes away, within a month, the other one's dead because they literally cannot live without the other. So what do we have? What do we have from this kind of love? We have songs. I can't live if living is without you. We sing songs, love songs. But actually, do we feel that at all? That without you, ki cholat ahava ani, that I am love sick, God. I love you. I appreciate you so much that when you're gone from my life, it's like my partner is missing. I'd rather not live if I don't have you with me. Are you hearing this? So this is really what is being communicated to us in this Mishnah. The Mishnah is saying the whole purpose of this world is to get to Olam Haba. What is Olam Haba? I don't know. Anyone who tells you that they know doesn't know. But what we do know is what's written to us in the Mishnayot, in the Gemara, where the Gemara expresses, the Mishnah, the Midrash explains that we experience a closeness with the divine. There's no sickness. There's no illness. There's no physical pain. There are no questions that eat at you. Because your proximity to God and His justice and His kindness helps you understand why everything in your life that felt terrible actually had to happen. Do you understand the closure, the bliss that is? The reunification of you together with all the people, your parents, grandparents, people that may have passed before. The ability to see all the wonderful things that you did that nobody saw, that are now being brought up and celebrated. That Olam Haba, it's not a party. It's a deep connection, an inextricable bond with God Himself. And all of your mortality and your fears and your worries and your pain, it all just slips away. And you are frozen in this state forever. That's Olam Haba. And how much you put in the suitcase in this world determines how strong that connection is and how close we are with Hashem for all of eternity. That's what Olam Haba means. Jack Sardar just wrote, Baruch Be'ezrat Hashem soon. No. I'm not ready to go. Okay? You're talking about Mashiach. That's Yemot HaMashiach. I'm talking about Olam Haba, heaven. Okay? So I'm not ready for that. Be'ezrat Hashem, not so soon. 120 for all of us. But when we get there, it's an unbelievable thing to experience. Says the Mishnah, if your whole life you pooped on holiness, you took God's korbanot and God's house, and you took God's Torah, and everything you used for your own uses, what do you think the relationship will be like in Olam Haba? What do you think that's going to feel like? What kind of closeness will you have created, engendered, built? That's what eternity is, okay? So if that's the case, we start to sharpen this idea of appreciating and respecting the holiness of something. When a siddur falls on the floor, this idea that we have in our community, that you run, you pick it up, and you give it a kiss. We teach the kids that from the time that they're a young child. They drop it on the floor, give it a kiss, give it a kiss. Not because you made a mistake, not because that's the law, but because this is a holy book. And it just fell on the ground. I must kiss it. I always relate that when I came as a child with my father to Eretz Israel, to Israel, we went to the old airport at Ben Gurion. And if you remember at the time, they would bring you those stairs. The stairs would go right up to the plane. You'd walk down onto the tarmac. And from the tarmac, you'd walk into the tiny airport back at Natbag. Okay? I remember my father getting down on his hands and knees and kissing the floor. And at first I didn't understand it, but then I realized. Because this land, Admat Kodeshu, it's a holy land. It's a holy place. We kiss these things. We show them proper reverence and respect. So when you walk into the synagogue, it's not what you can and can't do, but what you ought to do. You're sitting in this Beit HaKnesset. This place, this is a holy place. How I speak, even by the way, and here's the example. What happens if the prayers are over and someone starts talking to you, oh, you see this G, she's so beautiful, I can't believe it. Is that an appropriate conversation to have? It's not even, we're not even praying now. But you're talking about some girl's body parts that you saw at a party? That's an appropriate conversation for the holiest of places? No way. It's the mindset of holiness that allows us to relate to it in another way. And I find this all the time. People say to me, Rabbi, don't give me the spirit, give me the halacha. Am I allowed to do this on Shabbat or not? Don't give me the spirit of Shabbat. What do you mean, don't give you the spirit of Shabbat? What do you think Shabbat is? Yeah, there's laws, 100%. Those laws are defined as shamor, like we say in the Aseret HaDibrot. Shamor et Yom HaShabbat. And then the Pasuk says, in the second time we're reading about the Aseret HaDibrot, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat. So one time it says Shamor, one time it says Zachor. Okay? Shamor means protected. Don't do the things you're not allowed to do. Zachor means remember what it is. If you treat your wife with respect because the ketubah says that you have to, you're missing the point completely. Yes, it is a stopgap. It is a backstop, if you will, to ensure that happens. Yeah, 100%. But to think that your love for your wife comes from a legally mandated document? That's what your marriage is? Are you mental? Are you guys with me on this? I don't know if you're with me because people don't talk. We're a mute on Zoom and what's it called? And but I don't know. Maybe tell me, you guys. Tell me what you think. Give me some thumbs up if maybe I'm crazy. All right, let's carry on. All right, and I think that we'll see an example of this throughout our lives. So someone's asking me, ride a bike, not ride a bike. They can't even get into their heads this idea that even if something might not be asur, it might not be appropriate. And then when someone tells you, don't tell me about the spirit of Shabbat, explain that the spirit of Shabbat is a halacha. But I wish it didn't need to be. You know what? Can I give you an example as to what this means? So if there's rules and regulations for something, so does that take the romance out of it? One might think it does. There's a famous story about a guy who gets a phone call from his rabbi. The rabbi says, look, I know you were telling me the last couple of weeks you've been having trouble with your relationship with your wife. I said, yes. The rabbi, yes. Rabbi says to the guy, what's your problem? What's the issue? And he says, with this. He says, I have a piece of advice. Today's Friday. Go to the store, buy some flowers for your wife, come home and give it to your wife and tell her Shabbat Shalom. Guy goes, buys flowers, knocks on the door. His wife opens the door. She sees him with flowers. She's already crying. The guy hasn't bought her flowers since they got married. He hands it to his wife with a big smile and he said, the rabbi said I should buy these for you and say Shabbat Shalom. This guy's a toches, pardon my French. What an idiot. Right? What an idiot. Now, can I ask you a question? So if it's regulated, does that take out the romance? Does that take out the love? When someone tells you how you have to treat your children, how you have to give your kids the benefit of the doubt, how you always have to love them. So if someone told you those laws, does that remove love from it? It actually depends. It depends on how you see those laws. Are those guiding life principles? Or are they legalese? This is such an important distinction. Because for most of us, the Torah is legalese. It's God's tax code. It's God's legal code. It's the Constitution with all the amendments. That's what the Torah is. Okay? But really, try and imagine for 1 second that your father's passing away, calls you over to the bed, holds you by the shirt and says, please, your mother was the love of my life. Don't ever stop taking care of her. Could you imagine your dad doing that? Your dad, he says, listen, and I've noticed the way you're treating your son, he's not really buying, he's not, what you're selling. Give him some love. Show him some respect. Make the kid feel like actually you appreciate who he is and how hard he's working. Could you imagine that? Yeah. Last words that the father's communicating before he doesn't say any more words. Carries on. He gives you a bit more of advice. And I see how hard you're working. It's not good. It's not healthy. You need to take some time at home with the children, spending time. You need to do that. You're working so hard. Just one day, spend that day at home. Eat breakfast with them, go to the park with, I don't know what you're going to do. Yeah? Could you imagine the guy sitting there? He's getting his father's life advice, tears streaming down his face. He knows his father's not going to speak to him again. If your father did that to you, don't you think that those words would have had a profound impact on you for the rest of your life? And you tell your neighbors, the last thing my father said to me was he told me to take care of my mother. He begged me to treat my son with a little bit, a little bit of a shorter leash. My father begged me to not work so hard, to spend a little bit more time with the children. Of course you would do that. And it would be the most treasured advice you ever had. Secret, newsflash. That's what God did. He said, I'm not going to speak to you again. There's never going to be a time when I will come and speak to all the Jewish people. I'm doing it once. Honey, honor your father. Treat your mother right. Spend some time alone. And you know what? Don't forget me. I did everything for you in Egypt. Don't forget me. Don't switch me for another god. I want to tell you, your wife, she's amazing. Don't look at someone else's wife. Your house, you've done well for yourself. I know it bothers you. You're not as successful as your friends. Don't be jealous. These are the parting words, if you will, of a father who knows he'll never speak to his child again. Feel that. And when you're feeling it, now approach holiness in a new way. Approach the Shabbat in a way where I have a chance to be able to elevate this day. How do I want to do it? There's a lot of laws I got to keep true, but those laws are just guiding me towards a place where I will understand how best to spend that holiest of days. In fact, the Ramban writes that the reason why there's so many things we can't do on Shabbat, that's not the aim, that's not the purpose. All the melachot, all the halachot derabanan, about this, about that, about not going to work, all of those things you can't do. You know why all of those things are in place? So that you're able to do the bit that you're supposed to do, which is Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadesho. Remember this day to keep it holy. Tzedakah money is holy. Don't guesstimate how much you have to give. Okay? The Torah is holy. When you're sitting and studying Torah or learning in a Torah class, be dressed appropriately, even if you're on Zoom. Put on a pair of pants. Doesn't matter that nobody can see. It's not about what anyone else can see. It's about the fact that you're studying something, the holiest wisdom on earth. Doesn't it deserve that dignity? Do you see the point here? There's an elevation of all of these beautiful ideas, of these beautiful places, of the Brit Milah. When someone undoes the Brit Milah, what are they saying? I'd rather be part of this physical world than be part of the people that God gave a mission to elevate this world. There's no reason why we need to be here. Why doesn't God just make us angels? And the answer is, He puts us in a physical world so that we can lift that physical world. Destroying the Brit Milah, which is in and of itself a mitigation, a limitation, a cutting back, if you will, of the great physical urges and drives of man. Pulling that away and deciding to do away with it, to fit in with the Greeks, or with popular culture, or with my friends, if they're going out to a place that's not kosher and I want to be part of it, even though I'd rather for myself not do that. My friends are having this party on Shabbat, don't feel comfortable going, but you know what? My friends are there. What, am I not going to have any friends? I'm a social animal. Understanding that when something is holy, it's special, it's beautiful, you don't defile it. You don't spoil it. You don't ruin it. That's what this Mishnah is communicating to us. But I want to add one last piece. One last piece. Which is that it's so important to understand that not only are holy objects holy, and holy places holy, and holy words holy, but you and me, we are holy. And that sounds like a crazy thing to say. I don't feel holy. I just feel like a regular guy. I'm sure you just feel like a regular guy, a regular girl. Getting through my day, feeding my family, buying my clothes, going on my vacation or not, struggling with my finances or doing really well. I'm just a regular person doing a regular thing. The Torah says no. Kidoshim tihiyu. Be holy. Ki kadosh ani. Because I am holy. The commentators ask, what does that have to do with anything? Imagine a king said to you, you're a king. You know why? Because I'm a king. No, you're a king. I'm not a king. I'm a subject. When God says to us, to you, right? Kedoshim to you. You're holy. You be holy. Why? Because I'm holy. What does that have to do with anything? You're holy. I'm not. But the answer we keep illustrating is our bodies, ourselves, when we look at ourselves, we are a car. We are a suit. We are an envelope. We are a packaging for a piece of God. Chelek elokat mimal, a portion of God from on high, sent down into the earth to be able to lift that which is around it and those which are around it. You are holy. And part of understanding that you are holy is understanding that, one second, didn't we just have this conversation? I'm not holy. You're right. You're not. But there's something inside you that is. And by the way, what if you sin? Still holy. What if you're a rasha? Still holy. What if you've done every avon mistake in the world? Still holy. And the proof for that is that a person's gates to teshuvah and to tears to return to Hashem never disappear. So here I am with this holiness inside. Even if I don't deserve that moniker. You know what that means? If I'm holy, it means that he's holy, and she's holy, and they are holy, even if I disagree with them. This idea of dignity of human life comes from this. Because even if a human being is not dignifying their life with the dignity of humanity, they are still a human being with a holy soul within them, with potential to turn that around at the last moment. We will read in the coming weeks about a Roman who stands at the fire when they are burning the great sages of the Jewish people alive. And in that moment, he sees this great sage, Rav Chanina ben Teradion, and he's wrapped around him as they're burning him alive. They've wrapped around him tzmorot shel gefen. They've soaked cotton wool, so to speak, in water, and they've wrapped it around his heart so that his heart is protected from the fire, so that he'll stay alive longer as his body is being burned in excruciating pain. And the man says to Rav Chanina ben Teradion, a Roman soldier, an executioner, he says, if I remove the wool, will you promise me a place with you in the world to come? And Rav Chanina ben Teradion says, yes. And the man removes the wool and realizes that all the soldiers are running towards him. And he jumps into the fire together with the rabbi, and they die together. Says the Talmud, Bacha Rebbe ve'amar, Rebbe Yehuda Hanasi, he wept and he said, Yesh koneh olamo b'sha'a echad. There are those who acquire their world to come, their entire world, in one moment. And there are those that work at it for a lifetime. If I'd have asked you 2 seconds ago, if this executioner, this murderer, was a holy person, you'd be forced to agree to me that he wasn't. And yet 1 second later, after making a decision, after risking everything to do the right thing, his neshama goes to the Shamayim together with one of the great sages that ever lived, Reb Chanina ben Teradion. And he has the great rabbi, Reb Yehuda Hanasi, who compiled the Mishnah, weeping over how short, how quickly, how profoundly this man was able to turn his life around. That potential at all moments, and what we learn from this man is even in their final moment, is there. So now we look at the Mishnah, where the Mishnah says, Hamalbin penei havero berabim, someone who embarrasses his friend in front of everybody else, en lo chelek leolam haba. It seemed like it was the odd one out, because the Kodashim are holy, and the Moadot, the holidays, are holy, and the Brit Milah is holy, and the Torah is holy, but your friend? Yes, your friend. And even not your friend. There's a beautiful question that gets asked. In the story of Tamar and Yehuda, Tamar did not want to embarrass Yehuda by pointing out that he was the one that had been with her. That was the father of the baby that was in her stomach. And when they ask her, whose baby is this? She refuses to say, because she knows that Yehuda will be humiliated. So she says, let the person who recognizes these, the staff and this seal, let the person who recognizes these, let them stand forward, because he's the person, he's the father, he's the person that I was with. She risks being burned alive in order not to embarrass him. Says Rashi, Mikan Amru, on the spot, Rashi says, Noach lo le'adam, better for a person, Shiyapilu lekivshana esh, that they throw him in a furnace of fire, better that they throw him in a furnace of fire, ve'al yalbim pnei haveo berabim, and he will not humiliate his friend publicly. Now I want you to hear a fantastic question. There's a question that's asked. Why does it say Noach lo le'adam? Noach means more comfortable. It's better for a person to throw themselves. Why doesn't it say Tzarich Adam? A person is obligated. Chayav Adam. A person is responsible to let themselves get killed, so to speak, before they humiliate someone. Because humiliation is like murder. Like it drains the blood, it's literally bloodshed in the eyes of the Torah. Okay? So asks Rav Lev Chasman. He says, I don't understand. Why doesn't it say better to? Why doesn't it say obligated to? And he says a fantastic insight. Piercing. He says, yeah, maybe you are obligated to. Maybe you're not. That's not the point. Like I said earlier. Noach lo. Faced with the opportunity to go into a furnace of fire, or to eliminate, to humiliate, to destroy, to take down a person, to embarrass them on that level, Noach lo, it would be better for you to choose that one. You standing in front of a giant furnace and a smaller furnace. Which one are you going to choose? Which one you think you have a better chance of surviving in the end of the day? Our rabbis tell us that is how important it is to refrain from embarrassing a person. There was once a rabbi who was sitting and he was crying in the Bet Midrash. His name was Rav Yisrael Chaim Kaplan. Tzaddik. He's crying in the Bet Midrash, and one of the students comes up to him and they say, is everything okay? What happened? And he simply can't answer. He's crying too much. And finally they ask him, what happened? And he pulls up a Gemara. He says, the Gemara says, in Baba Metzia, page 58, if a person embarrasses someone, it's compared to murder. He says, if someone in front of you took a knife and shoved it through the heart of someone in the Beit HaKnesset, would that not bring you to tears? The boy says, of course. He says, well, the Gemara says that that's the same. And I just witnessed someone completely embarrass, humiliate, degrade another person in the shul. Should I not cry? Would you not cry? I think this is an important point. Understanding not the halacha, but the sanctity of someone's dignity. The holiness of a person. And how you treat an object that falls on the floor. One of the great rabbis Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. He said once, with his arms outstretched to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he lived like most Jews throughout history through a difficult period in Jewish history. He raised his hands to the heavens and he said, Ribono shel olam, a simple Jew, if his tefillin fall on the floor, he picks it up, he kisses it lovingly, he puts it down, he feels so bad, he's going to fast and give money to tzedakah because his tefillin dropped onto the ground. He said, Ribono shel olam, tefillin are called pe'er, glory. And when you talk about the Jewish people, you say, Yisrael asher becha et pa'er. The Jews that with and through them, I find my glory. He says, why aren't we at least as much as a pair of tefillin? Pick us up, Ribono shel olam. Pick us up, give us a kiss. Take us out of the dirt. We're in a difficult time. If we were tefillin and this was a Jew, they would pick it up and kiss it. Well, now it's you, God, and you treat us like your tefillin. We are holy. I want you to understand what that means and how that looks. Because it illustrates to all of us this idea of what it looks like when someone humiliates somebody else. And by the way, it's not just when you've humiliated the person. Tamar, she didn't do this. She wasn't coming, pointing fingers, writing a shocking expose, writing a novel about this. Tamar, they're about to kill her. She says, actually, I was within the halacha, Yehuda, where he did yibum, which is the law. When someone passes away, back then it was including fathers as well, they would have a child that would have the same name to carry on the legacy of the person that passed. This wasn't adultery, it was yibum. She wasn't even the one that did it. She wasn't embarrassing him. Even for someone to be caused to be embarrassed by you. There was a rabbi who once approached the altar of Slobodka, I believe it was. And he said to him, listen, Rabbi, I have some great classes. I can see the boys could really use the stuff. It would really, really help them all. And he says, okay, so great. So why don't you teach them? So the man says, listen, there's already a mashkiach over here. He already gives classes. I'm a little bit nervous that he'll get insulted if the boys like my class and they're going to start coming to me. The rabbi said, if that's the case, he says, I want to teach you what I learned from my rabbis. I learned, she'im yutzar matzav, if a situation would arise where we could rebuild the temple, the Beit HaMikdash, but it will be in a way shel chashash, of a worry, of maybe yipaga mandu b'Yisrael, maybe another Jew would be insulted or broken or stepped over or not felt not heard or not appreciated. Lo nivnehu, we won't build it. So you could build the Beit HaMikdash, but unfortunately building it is going to make this guy feel bad. Joe Rabinowitz. He's not. Everyone else is going to have salvation and Olam and Mashiach and everything, but Joe Rabinowitz's feelings are going to be hurt. We're not going to build the Beit HaMikdash for the sake of one Jew whose feelings are hurt. Unbelievable. And he said, and where do we learn this from? We learn it from Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu was offered the chance to go and save the Jewish people from Egypt, Moshe says to God, I can't do it. Shelach na biyad tishlach. Send your usual messenger. Send Aharon. Moshe knew that Aharon was already a prophet before him. He was his older brother. He said he should get it. What if his feelings are hurt? What does God say to Moshe? God says, don't worry. V'ra'acha v'samach belibo. He will see you and he will rejoice. Don't worry about it. Aharon is not going to be insulted. He's good. He's happy. He's happy for you. I'm telling you, I know everybody's mind, everybody's hearts. He'll be good. Said the rabbi, you see from there that had Aharon not been good with it, God didn't say, oh, well, Aharon, he might be insulted. Forget that. People are suffering. People are dying. Go do it. Moshe understood. If one person, it's not worth the whole idea. And more than that, he understood that if the salvation was going to come, it would not come in this way. If you have a way to be able to fix your business or make a lot of money, but part of the process is destroying somebody, that's not your path to success. And that's what Moshe says. I'm out. Until God says, don't worry, he's going to be happy. Once Moshe hears that, okay, now I'm in. What an unbelievable idea this Mishnah is teaching us. To see and to value the sanctity in things, in people, in days, in Torah, in the world itself. There was a rabbi once who saw a little kid, and the little kid was walking, and the kid absent-mindedly was pulling out, how do you call it? Was pulling out the leaves, from the bushes as he's walking. And he stops him, taps him on the shoulder. He says, my son, how could you murder one of God's creations? About a leaf, he said that. And I think we learned a great lesson. A leaf doesn't feel. A leaf doesn't hurt. A leaf doesn't mind. But you broke it because you were absent-minded. A lot of times we tell ourselves, it's just a joke. They won't mind. I know them. That guy, dahak. He's such a dahak. Oh, he's hilarious. No. Even if he doesn't mind. Even if he doesn't notice. And by the way, the classic answer is, if you're going to dish it out, what if the guy himself is a joker? He's always putting, you can't dish it out. You can't take it. Don't dish it out. It's not an excuse because he acted in a subpar way for you to do the same. Right? Someone punches you in the face and now it's done. Do you think that the response to that is for you to become a violent offender? Yeah, if you need to protect yourself, something else. But that's not how this world, that's not how we as human beings evolve and work. And that's what this Mishnah is teaching us about the holiness and the beauty and the dignity and the sanctity of the world in which we live. See it with those eyes. And then it becomes a privilege and an honor to live with the people we live with. It becomes an honor to interact with people and to hear their opinions and to give them the time and not interrupt them. It becomes an honor to be in the Beit Knesset. And you're not a weirdo or a geek because you're not talking. You're someone who actually appreciates the place that they're in. May God bless us always to have that appreciation and to become holy people ourselves, not just internally because of the portion of God within us, but also because we've worked to develop ourselves to that beautiful level. I hope and I pray that the words of Pirkei Avot, they penetrate our hearts and our souls. And each week, as we learn together, we feel that we are growing and becoming holier and becoming more sensitive in the lives that we live. Thank you so much for listening. See you soon. Alamak. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for saying thank you to the class. It's so nice every week, all these beautiful things. Ronnie asked a question. I'm just going to end with that question. The question Ronnie asked is, what about en lo chelek le'olam haba? How does that pertain to things people do wrong, knowingly or unknowingly, the ability to forgiveness to do teshuvah? There are some things that en lo chelek le'olam haba, but very rarely is it that a person can have no recourse to teshuvah whatsoever. Right? That's a very rare occurrence of en lo chelek le'olam haba. And again, that's when the person remains in that state. When they're not remaining in that state, that's something else. Okay? So I think that kind of answers the idea of en lo chelek le'olam haba. All right? Thank you so much for joining, everybody. I'm so happy to hear. God Hazaku Baruch. See you next time for the next class Thursday night. Hopefully we're going to try and make it live so people can join and deal. If you'd like to join, you're more than welcome to be with us. All right? Alamak. See you soon.